What is up, you beautiful people out there on the internet? It is I, Michael Shockman, here back at the Institute, the TM Shockman Institute, that is, with our next episode of our series known as Middle-earth Explained, where we dive into the nitty-gritty and the itsy-bitsy of Middle-earth and all of the wonderful things therein. Today we're going to be focusing on the second mortal race in Tolkien's works, that being the Dwarves. Really quick before we dive into that though, if you wouldn't mind doing me two really quick things, it'll just take a second. Please, first off, smash the like button and hit the subscribe button. It helps out immensely with the algorithm here on YouTube. I really appreciate it. Secondly, please check out the links down in the description. The first one to my Twitch page, where I stream at least once a week, and the second one to my Patreon, where you can support the channel financially if you choose so. Thank you so much in advance. I really appreciate it. As a last little parting thing, I do want to say thank you so much to everyone who has been watching the videos, who's been liking the videos, and who's been subscribing. I really appreciate it. We're growing at a breakneck pace, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much. Much love to all of you. And with that out of the way, folks, let's dive into the Dwarves. Okay. So this is going to be really quick. The Dwarves are, unlike the Elves, are one race. They've been around since, I believe, the First Age. They've had, for a long time, a rivalry with the Elves. And at one point, they were actually seen as being rather mischievous, rather evil, at one point. But then eventually, for the most part, broke away from that. And especially in the Third Age and the events of the War of the Ring, and before that in The Hobbit, they definitely proved themselves to be crucial in the defense of their lands and of Middle-earth as a whole. Most importantly, they are often considered to be the race that, although they may not be thought of in the forefront of your mind as being a martial type of power, they are usually the ones to, in the background, or at least in the mid-ground, hold the line against the tides of evil. They're usually the ones who don't get a lot of credit, but who usually are crucial in the defense of the lands. One really quick thing that I do want to point out about the Dwarves is that, as you guys may know, when Sauron made the Rings of Power, he made 3 for the Tall Elves, 9 for the Rings of Men, which we'll get to eventually, but he made 7 for the Dwarf Lords. Now, the Dwarf Lords, each, as you guys probably already know, but I'll go over it a little bit here, each of those specific Rings of Power, and each of those sets, for the most part, while doing great things, quote-unquote great, for their wearers and for their bearers, did a lot to, how best to put it, they had at least one thing that, kind of a curse, that brought out the worst parts of the people who were with them, or who wore them. For men, it was their lust for power. For the elves, sometimes it was their lust for magic and the arcane secrets. But for the dwarves, it was their greed for gold. We see this most pointedly pointed out in the lust for gold by Thror, in the Lonely Mountain in Erebor, who was a good example of how the lust for gold and the gold sickness can seriously bring down the downfall of a race. With that out of the way, folks, we're going to dive into the 7, count them 7, Dwarven Houses. And I'm reading from a list here. Those being the Longbeards, those being Durin's folk, which were the people of, originally out of Gundabad, which were, I believe, those of Erebor, Thorin Oakenshield, Thrain, that kind of thing. There were the Firebeards and the Broadbeams, originally from the Blue Mountains. There were the Iron Fists and Stiffbeards, originally from the east. And then there were also the Blacklocks and the Stonefoots, originally from the east. I believe that they each were in, like, Rune and places like that. Not quite Mordor, but a little bit further south, and a little bit further east into the Unknown Lands. Each of these different houses got a specific ring of power, and and during the Third Age and by the Third Age, some of them have already had a lessening in power because of their leaders being corrupted by the Rings of Power, and it remains to be seen how things will go from here on in. But thanks, folks. That's gonna about do it for today's episode on the Dwarves. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for next week when we cover those who come from Numenor and those who stay in Middle Earth and who now rule, whose age it is in the Fourth Age, that being men. Stay tuned for that, and I'm Michael Shockman. I've been your host and commentator, and until next time, guys, remember, keep it real, keep it safe, keep it healthy, and we'll see you guys again soon in the Institute. Bye, guys.